right, welcome to another episode of Corner, Memoirs of the Service Industry, and we're back after a short break. I was trying real hard to line up some really interesting guests in the weeks to come, and I need to take care of a couple things around the house, so I apologize for the absence, but we're back, and I think better than ever, as the song goes. This week, I'm welcoming my friend Leandro to the show. He's a downtown bartender, worked at Kohl's for the past 10 years. Kohl's, world famous Kohl's, home of the French dip here in downtown Los Angeles. He's also the host and creator of the Educated Barfly on YouTube, a fantastic channel where he teaches people how to make cocktails. Tells you a little bit the history of some of the classic cocktails, dives deep into how they came about, where their inspirations came from, who invented it, where it comes from, some of the other cocktails they might have inspired along the way. Fantastic channel. Highly recommend you check it out. It's a great resource too. He's also entertaining as hell. So I invite him on the show. We talk a little bit about, his background, how he came up, how he decided to go from bartending into being a content creator on YouTube. And yeah, it's a really great, fun episode. It's COVID time, so he's at home, so you might hear some kids in the background. I apologize, but this is the life we're leading. I'd love to do these things in person, but unfortunately, that's just not possible at the moment. So yeah, I'm hoping in the coming weeks to kind of pivot into a little bit different format and how we're asking these questions, how these interviews are going, but more details on that in the near future. So for now, please sit back, enjoy this week's episode, and let's get into service, shall we? You're listening to Corner, Memoirs of the Service Industry, a podcast set out to document the lives of those who work in service and hospitality. I'm Eric Chopo, and I'll be running the front of the house tonight. I'm a 22-year vet in the bar and restaurant scene and have worked and managed everything from Michelin star restaurants to dive bars and everything in between. I'm sitting down with members of our industry to talk about why they love doing what they do and share some stories along the way. Around every corner is a new story, a new hire, and a new experience. Leandro, how we doing, man? Ladies and gentlemen, Leandro, the Educated Barfly. How are you, sir? It's been a minute.
I'm pretty good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, I've been good. I have a new backdrop. I don't know if you've seen any of the other ones, but it wasn't so nice before. I was on a different wall and there was guitars behind me, but we redid our whole office here, so that was fun.
It's nice. I like
testing
it
out.
Yeah. I saw some of the other ones too.
Yeah.
I did a little look-see.
So, we're still kind of in this lockdown, at least us in the bar industry. You're at home with your family. So if our listeners here, there's kids running around, which, it's life, maybe, that's what it is. But sorry, let's get into it a little fast. You are, 10 years here in LA, bartender. I've known you for, I would say, was it 2013, around then? This is when I think I met you at Kohl's. You worked at Kohl's, legendary Kohl's French dip here in Los Angeles. In my opinion, the best French dip. And we can get into that, I guess, about the Kohl's Philippe's.
We can get into that.
Who started what? Philippe's is great and all, but it's a fucking diner compared to what Kohl's is. Kohl's is a full-fledged bar restaurant, has a long history in LA. Worked at a couple other places. So, I'm doing your resume but how'd you get into bartending to begin with? Like, was it did you start at Kohl's or were you bartending before you moved to LA?
All right. So I have the most kind of non-story about getting into bartending. It's such a cliched Hollywood story. Okay. And it's kind of disappointing for people when they hear, because, a lot of my friends that are bartenders have these kind of stories where they're like, I sat at this bar and I was given this drink. It was the Vieux Carré for the first time. And I touched it to my lips and the alcohol went. And then as soon as the flavor profile opened up in my mouth, I knew that I was done in finance and bartending would be it forever. It just transported me to another realm. And after that, I got Jerry Thomas's book and the rest is history. And that's just not my story. My story is I moved to LA from Boston to be an actor like everyone else. Mm-hmm. I had a really unrealistic idea of what it took to be an actor, like everyone else. I tried at it for many years and realized that I was kind of in a predicament because I absolutely loved acting and like being on stage and doing the thing, but I loathed doing the business part of it. Right. I hated going to meetings. I didn't want to do auditions. I just didn't have the heart for it. The thing is that I didn't want to admit that to myself either, because I had invested my entire future in this thing with nothing to fall back on.
Right.
So, fast forward a few years, I get really kind of over trying to be an actor. I become a production assistant. I work in the film industry for a few years. I get over that. And as I'm getting over that, I realized I started working in commercials, and I started realizing that there was all these kids that were like making just this insane amount of money doing commercials. And I was like, I think I could do that. So I got myself a commercial agent, and I knew I couldn't be a PA anymore because I couldn't have a job where I was 2 hours a day on set. Mm-hmm. So I had a PA friend, a production assistant friend, who worked at a nightclub in Hollywood called the King. Mm-hmm. And he was a bar back there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, could you hook me up with a job? So he was like, all right. So he just like over a couple of weeks, I sort of went in and met the owner and, kind of worked my way in as a bar back. And I just like worked my ass off and tried to basically just be the best bar back there was. And, I was working the weekend nights. So it was like literally like house nights, it was like 20 deep at the bar. Mm-hmm. The entirety of Orange County is in there, screaming for drinks, dude. The bartenders are pouring their drinks like this, and it was very fast paced. So that's how I got in. And then I worked there for 4 years, and really I kind of worked my way up to bartending. But the thing is that the owner didn't want men behind the bar because Hollywood, Hollywood nightclub, they want women behind the bar. They think that that's going to be the kind of the move. So we didn't really get like any shifts, and the shifts that we did get were like kind of the non-busy night shifts. But then we could fill in for people. So I basically bar backed and bartended in sort of this hybrid sort of way for a while. Mm-hmm. After a while, I grew tired of the working till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I found my way to a bar in downtown that was like a wine bar, and somehow bullshitted my way into becoming the manager of that wine bar because I knew nothing about wine when I first started the job, but I just got every single wine book I could and studied it up, and then like started bullshitting with the customers. And then the owner realized that I was really good at sort of selling wine. And so I kind of became the sort of de facto sort of, manager of that little wine bar.
I love wine. I love wine in the sense that you can bullshit people. As long as you're bullshitting with confidence, you can sell it.
Right. And nobody wants to admit that they don't know anything. So the thing is that even if you're wrong, they'll just agree with you.
I worked at this restaurant back east, and I sold a Pinot Noir maybe like 7 times a night, a bottle, in this small little restaurant. And I had never tried it. It was just, it's a Pinot Noir, so it goes good with both chicken and steak. And it was not the cheap one. It wasn't the expensive one. It was like the middle one. And I go, well, yeah, it's great. I have a couple bottles at home, and that's all it takes is if you drink it yourself, they'll buy it. And it wasn't bad wine. We wouldn't have had it if it was bad wine, but I sold that every night, and I never knew what it tasted like. I still don't know what it tastes like. It just,
you never just were consumed with enough curiosity to just taste it?
No, it just became now a point of pride that I could sell this without even knowing, just based on tasting notes,
I don't know. I sort of just like learned descriptors.
Yeah.
I just learned like random descriptors. I was like, yes, it's a medium bodied, semi-dry. It's got some dark fruit on the finish like that. And then you just describe any red wine that way, and people will just go, oh, okay. I still don't really know that much about wine. A little bit more than I did then, but still now not that much.
I know enough to get in trouble. That's it. I just know enough to get myself into the trouble, and then go, oh yeah, okay, I don't really know what I'm talking about.
So then, I had a friend working across the street at this bar called Royal Clayton's.
Yeah.
And the manager of Royal Clayton's, the bar manager of Royal Clayton's was this lady named Brent Falco. She moved at one point over to Cole's French Dip, and she took my friend Plex with her.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that, that's how I got into Kohl's. I sort of told my friend Plex,
Cool.
blah, blah, blah. Plex had backed with me at the nightclub, like for a very short period of time. And then I got into Kohl's, and then the rest, as they say, is
history. Now, when you were younger, like, you know, like out of high school, maybe college, did you ever work in hospitality? Or was your first foray into hospitality King Kings?
No, you know, honestly, it's funny. I worked as a waiter at an old folks home.
Okay.
When I was in high school.
All right.
But it wasn't really like a real waiter job, I guess, you know?
It was just like
the residents are getting their food for free.
Yeah, it's here's your food. You don't get to pick it. It's what you get today.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It kind of gave me a little bit of the like knowledge of the thing and like how you do it. You know, you dress up in a monkey suit and you run plates from the kitchen and put in orders, and you know, you do get familiar with the residents or whatever, right. You know. But other than that, no. Through high school, I worked in a head shop.
Yeah,
for a little while.
So a little sales and customer service, kind of. It's funny that you said Royal Clayton's, because that's what before the lockdown, I was managing Clayton's. So I was. It was their redo,
newer iteration.
Yeah, their redo of Royal Clayton's.
Right.
So yeah, I remember stumbling into Royal Clayton's like early on back in the day, and I was just like, "This place is dope." And then it became
loved Royal Clayton's.
Little Bear, which is still dope. It's just a place. Well, I think it was before the pandemic ended.
No, it was. I remember because we used to work at Tony's. We used to take a break.
Yep.
And we would go over to a Little Bear and have a couple of shots.
Yeah, the liquid breaks, man. Those are my favorite. Okay, so you start bar backing, which I love. I think bartenders who don't bar back first kind of inherently don't have the best bedside manner, let's say. That's the most politically correct way I can put it. Like, they aren't humble enough to know that this job is hard. They see the money, and they see the spotlight and the panache, if you will, of the job, but they don't know, it's when you're in the weeds and you think of it, like it's still service. Like, you have to just put your head down. And
I mean,
to
add on to that, I think the most tactful way to say it, I noticed that a lot of bartenders who've never bar backed aren't very into their bar backs.
Yes.
And because they just have no reference point for what the barback is going through. And they don't really realize, the barback has not only arguably one of the most important jobs in the bar, if not the most important job in the bar, but he's also being underpaid.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Barback's
enough money for the work they do.
Yeah. Most tip outs for barbacks, anytime I come in and manage a place and find out how the tips are divvied up, I always change it, because I'm just like, dude, yeah, all right, you guys are greedy fucks. These guys, you can't do your job with that. I don't see. I usually will watch a bar or servers and see how much bussing they do, and if they do none, then I adjust their tips accordingly. Because it's if you're not cleaning your own tins out when you have a chance and just throwing tins in a sink and expecting somebody to clean it up after you, I'm going to adjust how much you tip them out at the end of the day. Cause it's
right.
We have to be self-sufficient behind a bar as best we can, because in case somebody calls out, I just think that's just you learn that as a barback. If you never barback, you don't know how to be that. You're always relying on somebody else. And especially if you're barback.
I've always been a very big proponent of the equal parts, the house splitting equally, because, the barback doesn't have a less important job. And not only that, but the barback's job is a lot more extensive at times. And it's like one side of the house is doing one thing and the other side of the house is doing the other thing. You know what I mean? And so one side of the bar is doing you're doing equal, work in different ways. And so I think that should be compensated. Well, the other thing is that when you don't compensate your barbacks well, you don't attract good barbacks. And then if you don't have good barbacks, your entire bar and bar team will suffer.
Yeah.
For it,
And then also you always walk a fine line as a barback too. Cause I never like the barbacks who act like they're invisible. So if a customer comes up to them, they just kind of point. They just go talk to the bartender over there, or,
right.
And they don't interact. You have to, I think the best way now, especially nowadays, as before the pandemic, is just to cross train everybody. I need a bartender to be able to pour beer. If they don't know how to pour beer properly, then they're not helping, because if you're making cocktails, somebody needs a beer. It's so much better for the customer service to have somebody be able to cross train. Anyways, I don't want to have this whole episode about barbacks because I think there's far more interesting things to talk about with you. All right. We're at Cole's, heart of downtown. I met you and you're mainly just the lunch. You talked about you were tired of doing the 2 a.m., 4 a.m., late nights things. Did you always just work the day shift? Is that what was it like a quality of life thing? Because I knew you were the lunch guy for years there. My lunch break was 3 old fashions and a half French dip. So
yeah. So I wasn't always the lunch guy. I made myself the lunch guy for a couple of reasons, but my beginning there was first was a bar back there again, because I knew how to be a bar back and I knew how to bartend and take care of people, but I didn't know anything about cocktails, like classic cocktails, and actually how to make a real cocktail. I was making Incredible Hulks and Redhead Sluts and all those motherfuckers for people for 5 years or 4 years or whatever. And so I didn't know that stuff. I had such a work ethic though, that I within months, I was bartender at Cole's. The thing about it is that I got behind the bar and the busy ass night where the bartenders would be like in the weeds, right? Like flustered, like whatever, was like nothing, like, because I was just 10 deep at the bar and never be able to get to the bottom of the list. I mean, it's working those club, having people be drunk and rude. Yeah, working the club scene is a whole different level of weeded versus 3 deep at a cocktail bar where everyone kind of understands it's going to take a minute. Yeah, you know who's next. If you know who's next, you have no room to complain. In my opinion. So what happened was I was working Sunday through Thursday. I was working Thursday, Wednesday through Sunday shifts, and I would work the weekend nights, right? I would work like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sundays I would work brunch and I would do like a clopen. I would like close on Saturday and then open on Sunday for a long, long time. But what happened was that I had a child. And that child wanted to be up at night and I couldn't. There was a point where I was like coming home at 4 o'clock in the morning, and this is like closing at 2, cleaning, counting money, getting in my car and getting home. I don't live in downtown. I don't live anywhere near downtown. So I live in West Hollywood, which is an 8-mile drive. Right. Yep. So I would take half an hour to get home. I would get home. And as I'm opening the door, I'd be like creeping in and the baby would get up. And so I just couldn't do it. So I decided to move to lunch shifts, and I thought that I would be taking a pay cut. But what I soon found out about Cole's is that the lunch shift is more lucrative than the night shift because you have one bartender and one bar back. The bartender runs the entire bar. And then for a long time, there was one waiter, and then the waiter would leave at 3. Right. So you open at like 3 o'clock, the waiter would leave, and then you'd have the 3 hours of just having the entire joint to yourself. And then as time went on, they cut that waiter shift. And so then it was just me running the entire joint, just me and a back, the entire joint. And then on certain days, I wouldn't even have a back. So it was just me running the entire, the whole day up until the night shift came in. And so because of that, it was pretty lucrative. And it's a regular scene in the day. So it was better. I liked it better. There's more interaction with people. Yeah, you definitely had those like restaurants around you doing lunch shifts. So you had the break crew that coming through, and I know I spent many a break there. I mean, even when I wasn't working in restaurants, I was across the street working post production. So, and I'd be like, eye fatigue looking at a monitor for 6 hours. I'm like, well, it's like 4 o'clock. I'm gonna go get lunch and a couple old fashions, and that's my Cole story. I have many a drunken night there. All right. So you work your way up, you learn cocktails, you clearly fall in love with them because we're going to flash forward a bit because, we've established hard work, your dedication to the craft. For those who don't know, you have a YouTube channel called the Educated Barfly. You have 188,000 subscribers. You make cocktails and the history behind them, tutorials for people to learn. Where did the love of the history of the cocktail come for you?
Like,
it came from Cole's. I mean, it came from, honestly, our bar manager was really adamant about us knowing the history behind everything. And I'm a big history buff just in general. Like I was a poor student when I was a kid, but the one thing that I did really well in was like humanities class, like history, art, like all of that is like, I read biographies and memoirs a lot. I love like podcasts that will, go into history and stuff. It's just like, I have a big passion for history. And so I really dove in deep. And then when I realized that that you could take a look at basically any cocktail, right? And the history of it is runs through most of the major important events in history. I was just like hooked on that. The other thing is that I realized how valuable it is as a bartender to be able to know what you're talking about when you're talking about customers, especially someone at Kohl's will come in. True for every patron in every bar, but for Kohl's customers, people come in and they want to know like what they're drinking. And, I think as we've established on this podcast too, I like talking to people and I like talking.
Yeah.
I talk a lot.
Well, a brief history of Kohl's too. So Kohl's is one of the oldest bars in LA, right? It's in the Pacific Electric building, which is where the red car would be serviced. So it was like a mechanics bar back in the day. You have greats like, Bukowski used to haunt that place. Who's the other one? What's the gangsters guy's name again that I can't believe I'm blanking?
Mickey Cohen's
spot, So you have this history of Los Angeles in that place. It's pretty much unchanged for the most part for like the past 100 years or so. A couple coats of paint and a couple, new booths, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. So there's a deep history in that place. They're making classic drinks. So I can see where like that sparks it, but then where does the change come that you want to now take, essentially your show on the road where, you're educating people who are your customers, but where was the spark to go do that, on YouTube?
Well, I mean, a couple of things happened. So basically I made like talking to customers about drinks kind of a spiel to the point where people would come in to see me, to have discussions with me about cocktails because I like to nerd out about it. So that happened. Then the other thing that happened was that I had this idea for a show about bartenders that I wanted to shoot. And I had some friends that were still working in production and, had access to equipment and stuff. And I had this great idea. I sort of pitched to a couple of friends and they're like, that's a great idea. Let's make a trailer for it. And let's see if we can't like sell the trailer. Right. So we made this awesome trailer with a bunch of bartenders that I knew. And, the first idea was that I was just going to be behind the camera as the producer director, and I would design the episodes and then get other bartenders, in front of the camera. And we would sort of, kind of document bartending and sort of like the cocktail renaissance or whatever.
Yeah.
So we made this trailer. I got it in front of like some pretty high powered managers, and we had, talks with people at production companies, and people were interested. The thing is they didn't want to let us make it because we were nobody. And, what they want to do is that's a great idea. Oh, that trailer is amazing. Oh, you guys did such a great job. Yeah, we would totally like take this. We'll just like pay you for the idea. We'll just take it and we'll give it to a real director. And we just didn't want that. So, I don't know who it was, if it was me or my producing partner or even my friend Andrew, who helped me produce that trailer. Someone was like, maybe what we should do is just start a YouTube channel. And like, what would this look like if it were a channel? Yeah. And maybe if we can like get a lot of people to watch it, then we could say, okay, look, we can make something that a lot of people will watch, and then we can make our show.
Right.
So that's what we did. We started the YouTube channel, and at first I was like trying to get other bartenders to do it, but I realized really quickly two major roadblocks to that were that getting a bartender to show up at a certain time at a certain place on a certain day is really difficult. It's like herding cats. It's like I'd have people like be like, oh, that's today. Oh, I totally forgot and I booked something else, or they would be like, oh, today it's not a big idea, like a deal, and they're just doing something with their friend. Like they didn't really take it seriously. And then when I did get them in, people would be like, yeah, I'm good on camera. Like I'm good. Like I'm in front of a bar all the time. It's cool. And then as soon as the camera turns on, they're like,
just dear,
It's totally weird, like just weird in front of the camera. And so it just took so long to get the videos done. So I don't know. I think my partner Maris was like, I think you just need to get in front of the camera and do this yourself. And I was like, I don't know. I want to do that because I'm going to be any good at it. And if you look at the first videos that we did, they weren't very good. And it took me a while to sort of figure out how to be a host, but I sort of grudgingly did it because I was committed and I was having fun kind of shooting these videos. And so, you know, it slowly just turned into like a tutorial industry channel about cocktails.
Yeah. I mean, I can't lie. I've over the past couple, it's been 3 years you've been doing it. So like over the past, I'd say, 2 years, from time to time, I'll turn on the channel and go, okay, well that's I'll do that as part of my bar program. Cause there's drinks I've never heard of. Like I feel like I think with everything, I know enough to get myself into trouble. But I definitely don't know, half the drinks you're putting out there, at least the historical ones. And everyone's like trying to find the next best thing that stands out on a cocktail list. Cause like there's only so many riffs one can do of, a whiskey sour before you kind of like, let's just move on. So there's definitely been a couple of drinks where I'm like, okay, well that's going on the menu because nobody has it. And I've learned it from your show. So, awesome. But so I've noticed like, there's a mix of like classics. There's a mix of like modern classics. You have some user submitted stuff, which I love. But how do you deal with the fact that like, there's a limited number of things to kind of talk about within cocktails? Like where do you get how do you deal with the rut of it all, trying to find something new and interesting to talk about within the cocktails?
I mean, honestly, a lot of the channel it's not just about history, and it's like what I tried to basically do with this channel. I mean, history was definitely a big part of it because at the time that we started doing the channel, there were a couple other cocktail channels, but none of them were being done by professional bartenders, and none of them were really talking through the history of the channel. Even the really big one that was before us, like a couple of years older than us, maybe almost 3 years older than us. Even that guy was really likening his cocktails in his early videos to old movies, but not necessarily like sort of like this popped up in an old movie. And he kind of took this sort of pop culture approach as opposed to talking about the history about it. I pat myself too hard on the back. I believe we were the ones that really, I don't know. I think that we were the ones that really innovated, like getting deep into history on cocktails. Yeah. The other thing though, that we wanted to do though, was talk about technique. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because nobody for sure, I don't know if we were the first ones to do history. I think we were, but if I'm wrong about that, we definitely ones that were really focusing on technique. Yeah. And nobody else was. And the thing is that, or not many people were, if I can, maybe one guy named Steve, the bartender, was doing technique. Mm-hmm. But the thing about, cocktails is that anyone can follow a recipe. Like, it's like anyone can follow a recipe, like a Wolfgang Puck's book, right? Yeah. And I can cook a Wolfgang Puck meal, but it's Wolfgang Puck technique that makes people go back to Spago and cut, right? Yeah. It's the technique of making it. And so I thought it would be really important to not only just show people how to make a cocktail and show the recipe and the history behind it, but like how I actually make the cocktail. So mine looks like what I see on the screen. Yeah. How can I basically just took what I do with barbacks and sort of just tried to train them in the technique. So when I get kind of in the rut about like history, or if I'm doing something that doesn't have any history behind it, because the thing that I tried to do with this channel is to from bartenders that I admire, mm-hmm. or people who I think that I admire that don't get a lot of press. They're not in that Star Tender Club. Yeah. And give them some press that I think that they deserve because their cocktail is amazing. Yeah. So I'll talk about bar. I'll talk about them as a bartender if I know them or if I don't know them. Sometimes I'll reach out to them and say, hey, can I do this? This is what I like to do. Tell me a bit about yourself so I can talk about something. Mm-hmm. But then I'll always go back to technique. And there's a lot of misconceptions about like, you put too much ice in the drink. Well, this is put a lot of ice in the actually I didn't, and this is why. Yeah. Sort of trying to break down those misconceptions so I'll just go back to that. So I never really get in a rut because I'm always excited about the next thing I'm trying to do. Yeah. The one thing that I'm not good at though is seasonally doing stuff like, oh my God, let's do this, and this. Oh no, we missed Halloween. I'm not good at the holiday stuff at all.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because there's like so many pumpkin spice, whatever version. I mean, again, it's like, what I like about yours compared to some others is that it's not just a pop culture. Like a lot of the other ones are pop culture. Like, oh, we're going to make a drink from Futurama, which isn't a real thing. And you're just, or like, we're going to make the Flaming Mo. And it's like, cool. You know, I like to see what your take is on that, but it's not a real drink. And I think especially now during quarantine, so many people have been home bartending, and, you know, there's celebrities even doing it and they're fucking it all up. Stanley Tucci.
Everyone just loved that. I just love that you be a celebrity and just butcher a drink and just get so much love for it. But if anyone else had done what Stanley Tucci did and put it on the internet, the whole internet would have jumped down their friggin' throat. Dude.
I mean, I can only speak for the Downtown Bartenders group, but it feels like the entirety of the bartender community and the internet jumped down his throat. Hell, man, I even made a parody one about making it correctly.
That's hilarious. I just think that I just think that people were so tickled that like Stanley Tucci tried to make a Negroni that totally pat him on the back, and we're like, oh, I love the fact that Stanley Tucci's doing this.
I respect it, right? And I in my parody video I even talked about, I was like, look, I love a boozy drink, but like this drink's about balance, so you don't want to put. I mean, you're at home, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I would just double it up, make a double Negroni, and then it's still balanced. Like, but yeah, it was such a low hanging fruit. It was easy to kind of like attack him on that one because
right.
But yeah, at least he did it. But that's the thing, is I feel like a lot of these other YouTube videos, they're just kind of making a good show. And what I think where you stand out is, you know, you're making a good drink that happens to be in an entertaining format. You know, right. It's not about the show, it's about the drink and how to do that right.
Right. And that's where my frustration with YouTube is in, though. The thing about YouTube that I learned, you know, because I came to YouTube very cocky, man. And I was like, oh, there's no bartenders doing this, man. Oh, nobody's doing these drinks correctly. Like, oh man, I'm going to kill it on this channel. I'm going to kill this. My channel is going to kill it. And you know what? That's the big frustration about YouTube, is that pick what you want to do, because YouTube is first and foremost about entertainment, and the channels that get huge, they're huge because they're entertaining. It doesn't matter whether the specs are not correct. It doesn't matter. And so we had a decision to make, you know, it's like, we either go the entertainment route, or we go like, we're going to be the professional bartending channel route. And so we decided that we're going to be the bartending channel route. But that also means that we're more of a niche channel, you know, we may not be that channel that gets to 1 million, you know, quickly or whatever, because, or, I mean, I hope we do, and I would love it if we did, but we, you know, it's like, the thing about YouTube is that people want to see you drink disgusting stuff on YouTube. Like they want to see you suffer. They want to, you know, they want a laugh. They don't necessarily want there's a smaller group of people that really want those specs. Yeah.
And also it's just when you're doing, it's like technical videos, right? So like I'm a photographer as well. So when I'm watching somebody like review a camera, it's not always entertaining, but it's like those channels have slower growth. They still grow because somebody will, like, you know, some 21-year-old will hear about an old fashioned the first time and Google how to make it, and they'll find your channel because you do have growth on it. And so I think that with YouTube, things happen exponentially. So, you know, it will happen. It just sometimes certain approaches are slower in the way their growth is.
I mean, if I was doing pranks, I may be there already. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's just like, it just depends on like what it is. You know, the thing is that like, I want to be like, the whole point of this channel has always been to be the most comprehensive cocktail channel on YouTube, to find the widest variety of cocktails out there, you know, and to dispense information to people, you know, in kind of like easy to digest way, so that people can then take that and run it on their own, you know, and inspire people to make better drinks.
Yeah. I love it. So
you know, our motto for a long time was drink better.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of room for growth. I think the funny thing I saw is, like, you know, somebody said, I pity bartenders because when they come back from the pandemic, everyone's going to say this drink's too weak, and because they've been making like 4-ounce cocktails. And so,
true.
It's like, so, all right, to that, I had a couple questions because, you know, I feel like we're kind of cut from the same cloth as kind of how we approach things. But I was curious, there's some technical aspects of it. Being that you've been a bar manager. Talk shop. Yeah. You've been a bar manager. You're carving out your niche as an expert in the field. So 1.5 ounce pour, 2 ounce pour.
2 ounce pour. It depends. It depends on the balance of the drink.
Yes.
That being said, booze is such that a neat pour in a bar that I would own is 2 ounces.
Correct.
No, 1.5 ounces.
That is the correct answer.
1.75 ounces if you're going to be cheap, but 2 ounces. 2 ounces. 2 ounces. Come on. I'm not trying to nickel and dime everybody. I want everyone to have like a fair pour in the bar.
Right. And then just price accordingly. If you have to take a $10 shot and make it $11 to cover your costs.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Or just eat it and just know that you'll sell more and make more money in the long run. What are some bad practices you see in the bar? I think one of the big things about your channel is that you kind of touch on is about like, there's too much ice in that. There's not enough ice in it. Some bad practices over the years you've noticed that are simple fixes. Like, I don't want to get too deep dive in it, but like right off the top of your head, like some things that an easy change of practice could make for a better cocktail and a better bar.
I mean, I think a lot of the things that I would talk about in this are really preference things that our bartenders argue about. Like, so for one, I think it's really sloppy not to double shake in cocktails.
Right.
Now, I know that there's a whole freaking group of people, including very well-renowned bartenders like Dave Arnold, who say, "Oh, I don't like double straining, and I like the ice chips on there." And yes, it will overdilute your cocktail, and that means you got to drink your cocktail faster. And there is also that whole idea that, like, with shaken drinks, you should dispatch the first one quickly and then take your time on the second one, right? That's like sort of like the thing. But for me, I like things to be really clean and very elegant. And for me, having a bunch of ice chips on the top of the bar, on the top of the cocktail, is just it's just not good. And then as far as like behind the bar, like I think bad mise en place, like just having like, for those of the people watching this that don't know what mise en place is, it just means like the way that you situate everything behind the bar should be, readily accessible and easy to obtain, so that you're not taking a lot of time prepping to make drinks. You're just able to grab everything. I think that like that type of stuff, but cutting corners on cocktail strategy.
Yeah.
I think like that's really it though. The thing is I haven't, like, as a bar manager, I was only the bar manager of a bar of a crew that most of them I worked with for almost a decade. And they were all, good at their job. And, they all kind of knew what was expected and didn't, at least they didn't cut corners when I was watching. Maybe they cut corners when I wasn't there, but.
I think I know the answer to this because I think you've mentioned it in one of your videos, but for the listening audience at home, what's your go-to drink when you go out? Like, what's your favorite cocktail?
Ooh, shot and beer. What's my favorite cocktail is a different question. Oh man, I don't know. I really like a rum old fashioned, and I've been really, my whole career has really been dominated by gin and whiskey, and rum has become a passion over the last 3 years or so. I've been really getting deep into rum. So I really like aromatic whiskey drinks. And the other thing that I've been doing lately that I really like is pretty much making any high proof cocktail that I like into a highball, because I love the idea of taking something that is got like 100 proof rye and, vermouth and bitters, and then diluting it down to 11% alcohol. And then I'm able to drink it with dinner and not get shithoused.
Right.
So that's like, Scotch highballs are like a big thing, but like I'm a big fan of sort of lengthening out, barrel aged spirits with water or soda. So I could drink a Scotch highball.
Yeah.
Or I like to make a 2-to-1 martini highball.
Okay. I got to try the 2-to-1 martini highball. Cause I
drink a fair amount of martinis.
I will say, I'll give you credit where credit's due. I think the first time I had a 2-to-1 martini was about like 5 years ago, and you served it to me. And it was kind of that eye opening of like, oh, gin doesn't suck. It's tonic that I hate. And vermouth I've always appreciated vermouth, but it was usually you get like bad vermouth in a lot of places when you do have it. But a 2-to-1 martini is how I make it at home now. It's just like 2 ounces gin, 2 ounces vermouth.
Using good chilled vermouth if you're using really high quality gin that you like, whatever the flavor profile of the gin is, right? And that you found a pairing between the gin and vermouth that you really like, and then just a few dashes of orange bitters.
Yep.
Oh, chef's kiss, dude. You know, there's not a better, but you know, I can't drink several martinis because I'll just be
just dead.
But I can drink several martini highballs.
There you go.
I'm selling this drink. It's awesome.
I gotta try it. Okay, so all right, this kind of dovetails into where I want to end the show on, about kind of our industry as a whole, the state of what's going on right now. So when our industry opens back up and we can kind of do what we want, what is one trend over the past couple of years behind the bar as far as cocktails go that you would love to see just never show up ever again? Like, you know, example, like smoked old fashions, or they plate, you know, that type of stuff. Like, what is one thing that got really trendy and every bar you walk into has it on the menu, they would love to see never be on the menu ever again?
12 ingredient drinks.
Thank you. Yes. Also a correct answer.
That's it. That's all I can think of. I don't know. Overcomplicated. You know, I think the thing that I'm getting really tired of when it comes to like things on bar menus is, okay, this is going to probably spark another discussion, but
sure.
Cocktail menus that are not intentional. So I think that a lot of bars kind of find like they're sort of struggling to have an identity, let's say, right? So what they do is they kind of find what's popular, let's say. And then a lot of like, for like a little while, it's like this, or like, I think we're kind of still in the middle of it, but this sort of like farm to table, you know, what I call farmers market cocktails really are really popular. The thing is that there are certain bartenders who are tight in their DNA. And so when they do it, it's an intentional decision. It's an expression of their style, but a lot of times bars will just try to adopt that style and it kind of reeks of artifice. And so they sort of like glob onto the most sensational pieces of that style of drink making, and then try to do that. And I think that I would just like to see more authenticity or something in, you know.
I think
I don't know if that's just a trend, but you know.
No, I agree with you, because I think there was like a couple of years ago where I just would walk into like Sassafras or something in Hollywood, and like 2 out of 3 drinks on their menu had shrubs in it. I go, shrub's a great ingredient to have, but I don't think you need every cocktail to have it in it. It's just, it's like somebody gets a shiny new toy and they want to put it in everything. And, but I agree. I think for me, my approach is always kind of, you know, when I was working at Faith and Flower, it's like, all right, we're a high end place, so their cocktails should be elegant and, you know, should be worth the money we're charging for them. But then when I took over Clayton's, I go, you're a bar, and your cocktail list from the first person who had it was just overly complicated and overly ego driven. And I'm like, it's a pub. They should just be making the best versions of the classics we can. And that was my approach.
It's like, know your identity, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that people can't mash up things, but I'm kind of sick of bars trying to be everything, like bars that try to be everything for everybody. It's like, you know, one of the things about Cole's that was great is that it was a very specific thing. Now, after a long time of working there, I got a little bit over that one specific thing because it's just doing the same thing over and over again. And I was sort of craving to do other things, but I'm glad that I would have to go somewhere else to sort of ply a new trade, because the reality is that nobody wants to walk into Cole's and drink a tiki cocktail.
Correct.
Because that's not what Cole's is. Now, you could take the flavors of a tiki cocktail and deconstruct it down into an old fashioned, and that would be fine, which we had done in the past. But it's just about like sort of knowing what your bar is and then sort of sticking to that and being authentic about it is what I really, and I hope that is what people kind of, I hope that's where the trend goes maybe.
I think I agree with you on the, 12 ingredient cocktails, because when you're putting a scant quarter ounce of anything in it, I'm not going to taste it. It's like mixing paints. Eventually everything's brown when you put too many colors into it. Eventually it just tastes like whatever the dominant flavor profile is.
Right. It's like you can't have cinnamon syrup and honey syrup and ginger syrup and lime juice and pineapple juice and rum and gin. It's like, what are we making?
Yeah.
What are we making? What is this?
Now, I've had some really great, like, surprising cocktails in that, but I feel like that's the minority and not the majority when you have too many drinks in it. Again, I'm of the philosophy, 2 to 3 ingredients is like your sweet spot, 5 max. That's kind of where I go. If I really need it, usually it ends up being something that so when I opened Shibumi, Chef Dave Schlosser he went to the extreme. He wanted 2 ingredient cocktails. And when you go think about it, you're like, okay, well, there's only a certain amount of drinks we can pull off in 2. I mean, sours get eliminated, but then he switched it on the thinking on it where he was like, well, what is a sour? It's citrus and sweet, right? And so he introduced us to the world of kosos. Kosos are fermented. It's equal parts sugar and vegetables or fruits, and you blend it up and let that ferment, and you end up having a probiotic-y, mixture, which is really great and flavorful. So he goes, now experiment with this with flavor profile. So like, all right, I love an East Side. So, you take mint and lemon, and you combine all that with the sugar. And where do you get from that? Well, it tasted like, toothpaste almost. It was so minty, but then you have to balance it out. But the idea being is that now this one ingredient, it helps you like pare it down where the preparation happens behind the scenes. So the execution of it, and it's essentially like
pours. It's
essentially like batching out cocktails. But I felt that it was more of, it was taking what I like about the theory of 12 ingredient cocktails about we want to be, chefy with it, and then really being chefy with it instead of just kind of putting a bunch of stuff into a shaker.
Making something that has a few ingredients in it, but then that counts for one ingredient. It's the same thing as having like putting Calpico in your cocktail, right? Okay, like I said, Japanese like fruit milk or whatever. It's like there's a bunch of things that make Calpico, but when you pour that's one ingredient, right? And then you're pairing those flavor profiles with whatever other else. Yeah. I kind of feel like if you can make a cocktail with 5 ingredients or under, and have it be surprising and wonderful, even if it's a riff off a classic, then you've mastered bartending. And I think that if you can make a surprising, wonderful cocktail with 3 ingredients, then you're basically the Hattori Hanzo of bartending. Right? So people are going to come to you to build their samurai sword because you have frickin' mastered it and should be teaching other people. That's my aesthetic. My aesthetic is also very clean. Like, I've actually been trying to work on garnish game because garnish game for Instagram is different than garnish game for the bar. I'm not going to futz with a garnish for 15 minutes at the bar because the drink will die and people will be upset with me. And so I tried to do like a peel, and then you zest the peel into the drink. You put the peel inside the drink, you place it on top, or maybe you curl it onto the piece of ice or something. But, for Instagram or for YouTube, it's like that thumbnail needs to be catchy, it needs to be eye catchy. Right. So now we got to start like cutting things with knives and making things feathered and, doing stuff that looks interesting. So that's kind of crazy. Functional
garnish is my point of view. If it doesn't serve a purpose, it doesn't belong on the drink. Banana leaves aside, I think that they look cool, but I also think they serve somewhat of a function in a tiki drink. But it's functional, man. And then sometimes just discard it because it looks better without it. All right. So, we're still kind of closed down. You were at Kohl's when the quarantine happened, and Kohl's does serve food and does have some outdoor seating, could do a very big, to go play. They're known for cocktails. They could have done cocktail kits. There could have been a play there. Did you get a sense on why they just kind of decided to be like, we're going to sit this one out?
Yeah, they ran the numbers, and the numbers didn't make any sense because the thing is that, Kohl's at the time we were trying to fight our way out of a major decline, and, I think part of the reason why that decline happened was because there was just everybody and their mother was open in a restaurant or a bar in downtown. And for many years, we were sort of the only game in town. Like, you could go there at 11 o'clock in the morning and have an old fashioned and a French dip and do a lunch and whatever. And it's just over time, more and more places opened up, and it sort of diluted the playing field. And so, they were sort of in a rut at the time that this all happened. The other thing is that the labor cost of running Kohl's is really high. It's super high, and their margins are really, really razor thin. Mm-hmm. So they ran the numbers and decided it's not worth it for us. We're too big an operation to do like bottled cocktails or we're just not that thing. I don't know if people want to go get a bottle of old fashioned from Kohl's. The whole appeal of Kohl's is sitting in that bar. Yeah. And the dynamic with the bartender and having it be this neighborhood joint, and I just don't know if I think that maybe they made the right choice to do that. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with Kohl's now. Like, I was furloughed and then they reopened in that first wave of reopenings, and I declined to come back because I wasn't feeling like comfortable. And I have some high risk people in my family, in my immediate family. And then on top of that, I had kids and stuff, and I just didn't feel like it was safe. And so I declined to come back. So then I had like lost my job in earnest. Like I wasn't, I had lost my job. And then luckily I had the Barfly thing. So that was, basically I just decided we're going to start to build this up into something. Right. So I at this time, I think they're still closed. They said they were not going to, on the second closure, they said they were not going to reopen until they were like, somebody was able to sit down at the bar, and be normal. Yeah. That's how
Clayton's is doing it. They, from being a little closer downtown than you are, they are still closed. And word on the street is 2 and 3 is kind of like fire sailing everything. So I don't know if they sold Kohl's or if it's still up for grabs, but that's kind of the last thing I heard was.
I mean, honestly, to tell you the truth, there was a massive talk about selling Kohl's even before the pandemic. Kohl's was becoming a liability, and I think that it survived as long as it did because the owner loved it so much. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to love there, Yeah. But I don't know, have like any insider knowledge. I haven't talked to the GM. I haven't talked to the AGM other than just like checking in on them to see how they're doing. Right. I don't know like what's going on. So, I hope that they survive in some way, but if they fire sale it, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I think my guess is how it usually is somebody will come in and open it and try to push it in a direction that is in the wrong direction. Yeah. They won't see it. Then they'll try and sell it again. I just think that, it's a staple. I hate to see it completely go, but the city hasn't done anything to help things in the fact that like that area of downtown, it's like 2 blocks from Skid Row, and it's getting worse. And it was getting worse before the pandemic. It sure as hell's gotten a hell of a lot worse now. So it's going to be a long road before that's kind of the same as far as tourism. But what's next for you? So, during the pandemic, it seems like you've upped your production on Barfly, you're putting out more content. If things open back up, are you getting behind the stick again, or are you trying to like really turn into a full-time YouTuber and content creator?
I don't know. It's a complicated question that I don't really quite know the answer to, because I'm not going to stop the YouTube. We actually created a second channel, which we haven't posted on too much. But we are, honestly, right before the pandemic, we were starting to do some, kind of travel stuff, some other stuff that, surrounding the bar world. And COVID kind of definitely shut that down. So that's kind of up in the air right now. But we are going to be, so we didn't actually ramp up our production. Like, what's really funny is that before the pandemic, we were doing 5 episodes a week, and now we're doing 3 episodes a week. We actually pared our production down a little bit, and we're going to be changing format again soon to sort of dial things in a different direction, just because I kind of just feel like I have a sense now that a lot of people, we have some very regular viewers that love what we do, but a lot of people are just like, it's just always just like cocktail. Yeah. I haven't really had a lot of time to really do like much else. Thank you much. I told you it was going to happen. I can't believe it didn't happen before now. So yeah, the thing is though, is that I love being behind the bar. I really do love it. And if there was some way in which I could work in a bar, but then also be able, like, let's just like Fantasyland, like things go back to normal at some point and we're all able to hang out again and stay in a bar and whatever, you know, if I could be in a bar where I could like work behind the stick or do some, you know, sort of guest shifts or something somewhere, and then also keep a travel schedule and do what I want to do, then I would do that. I have another idea that I'm putting out there. Someone's probably going to steal it. That's fine. Where, you know, I had this idea where like, you know, we've built to the channel enough that I've become enough of a kind of a staple, you know, of a personality around the United States that I thought that maybe it would be fun to do guest shifts and do like a tour, like the way a band tours.
Oh yeah.
Just sort of like make some content, like get in a Winnebago, maybe with some other bartenders and then make content about us just going bar to bar. Right. My idea initially would be like to bartend from here to Tales of the Cocktail. Okay. And then just pick like 7 or 8 bars to do guest shifts on, just do like 2-hour guest shifts, or have like take over the bar for a night and have like 3 or 4 different bartenders to do like an hour and a half or 2 hours each. Right. And then just film it and do stuff like that. So I have a lot of like ideas of like how to bring it in. The other thing though, is that I've run a bar for long enough and my style of bartending is so dyed in the wool. I don't know that I could go into a bar and have a boss and do things their way. Right. Which is, I think that, you know, if I were going to do something, I might get some investors and open a bar. Yeah. And then have someone run it for me. And then I would just come in and bartend and own a bar and sort of call the shots. Cause I just don't know that I could be like, all right, yeah, I'm going to come work at Clayton's and you guys do things this way. And maybe I don't want to do things that way. Yeah. You know, like, I don't know if I could do that, to be honest, if I'm 100% honest.
I'm in that boat too. Cause it's, you know, I'm starting to look for work again just cause it's starting to get time and, you know, line something up for the new year. And yeah, it's kind of like coming from, you know, running the ship over Clayton's and then can the rug pulled out from underneath me, then to have to like go and take orders from, if I don't get another GM job, take orders from, even if it's get a GM job, take orders from an owner that I'm like, I'm just like, you know, psyching myself out before even doing it. Cause I'm kind of the same way. I've been doing this for so long that I'm particular in the way that I do it. And I don't know I don't know if I make the choice after all this is said and done, if I want to put up with that, like people's idiosyncratic, you know, whatever. Like, I just don't know if I could deal without like losing my fucking mind. Like, it's just, I'm so particular in how I do things. Right. It may not be the right way to do it. I know it's probably not the right way to do it. It's just how I've been doing it for so long that it's just a tough pill to swallow to get back and have to take orders and stuff like that again. But who knows?
Not to mention that, like, I mean, I one of the things, you know, it's funny because I actually found out pretty quickly, you know, that, you know, I don't like being a bar manager. And I really, really do not, I'm not cut out for that type of thing. I don't like, you know, having to, you know, deal with upper management. And it's like, you know, you can do what you want to like an extent, but you're beholden to other people and their ideas that are actually the people who are kind of running the show. And, you know, and a lot of times you have to sort of suck it up and you know, sort of employ things that you don't agree with. And, you know, it's not that I want to be like the last say or that I'm not a good collaborator, because I honestly love collaborating with people. And I think that collaborating is the best form of doing business in any way, whether it's you're on YouTube or whatever. That's why I've been super collaborative with like any other. I don't care if a channel has 10 subscribers. Someone's like, do you want to collaborate? And they have a good idea. I'm going to do it because I just think that that's where you make magic with, you know, it's like other people. But at the same time, you know, when you are beholden to someone and their ideas and you think they're making the wrong move and you have to implement it anyway, that's a bitter pill to swallow. For you, you know?
Yeah. I always joke, like, I joke how I became a taproom manager at Boomtown. I went there because I was in between shifts. I did some production. I needed to get back into the real world and they were hiring, and I went there just to kind of pour beers and just kind of like I used to call it, I was on vacation from real bartending, pouring beers.
Right. I love pouring beers. Pouring beers is really lucrative too. It's the most lucrative bartending you can do.
Dude, that place
takes you 30 seconds and you get at least $1 on every drink.
Yep. So it was, you know, I was kind of like just there to pour drinks, and I kept noticing they had a very, very green staff. And I mean green in the sense that hadn't really worked in a bar or a restaurant. And I just kept seeing these things that were driving me nuts. Like the one that I'll tell without throwing anyone under the bus was coming from proper bars and proper restaurants, I put stacks of coasters on the bar. So then when we greeted somebody, we put a coaster down like we're trained to do, like a napkin or whatever. So you mark them that they're greeted. And some of them just kept taking those coasters off the bar, like the stacks of them. And I kept putting them back, and I would turn around and they would take them off. And I turned to the manager. I'm like, you have to make me like a supervisor or something, because I'm going to lose it. I'm going to be that one bartender, the one employee is telling everyone they're doing it wrong.
Right.
I don't have the authority to tell them they're fucking up, but they're fucking up, and something has to be done about it. So then sure enough, a couple weeks later, I'm have way more responsibility than I thought I was going to get in that place, and staying late, counting money. But I was like, I was going to lose it, because it's like, guys, there's a way to do this, and somebody needs to tell you how to do it.
My whole thing also, when I see people pour beer, it drives me crazy. Now that we're just on this for a second, I just have to say, is when they're pouring the beer, they're pouring the beer, and then they're like kind of write the beer as they're pouring it, and then the tap goes into the beer.
I hate it.
It drives me fucking crazy.
Hate it. It's just so gross.
If I see someone do that to my beer, I'll be like, you pour me another beer, because you just put the tap into the beer, and that's just not sanitary.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drink that. I'm sorry, but you gotta redo that. That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of beer pouring etiquette that drives me nuts, though, because it's funny is that it's like a pretty simple task, but if you don't know how to do it, it's really easy to mess it up too.
And the thing is, look, we've all been there. There's a tap that pours like shit, and it's just pure foam, and you got to dump it out. But that's
if pressure's not right, or the cold or the tap, or beer is finicky. Especially if you have long lines under the bar. And you need like a glycol chiller to kind of chill it on its way, then you're going to have foamy beer. And it's a pain in the ass all the time, for sure.
That's a pet peeve. Also, dirty glasses. I guess the average customer doesn't realize this, but if you have like little micro dots, like there's a glass. If you got like little micro dots like popping up in here, and you can see it looks like somebody shook up a bottle of seltzer in your glass. That glass isn't clean. It still has like residue sanitizer on it, and
right. Nobody wants to drink sanitizer in a glass. That's disgusting.
Or when you smell the washing machine like in the glass, I hate that too. Like, it just got rinsed, and it was just like, it still smells
exactly.
like.
I don't know. In many ways at Kohl's, we were like super spoiled, because I came from nightclubs where all you have is like the little 3-tiered, brushes that spin. And then, then I, for many years working in a bar that has a small dishwasher behind there that makes everything spotlessly clean,
Yeah. I hate the 3 bins now. None of them. I did a couple shifts over at Magnolia House about a year or so back, and it's a tiny little bar. It used to be a house. That's why its name is named that. But it's this tiny little bar, and the 3 bins is all we had. And I'm fucking almost 40, dude. I'm breaking my back, bending over, having to wash.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Not just that, but it's also like when you have that, nobody wants to use it. And so at the end of the night, you always have this like massive pile of dishes on the one part of the tier sink, right? And then like the ritual, especially if you don't, like, God forbid you don't have a bar rack, dude. You're just sitting there like, you're cleaning all of this stuff. And if it has lipstick on it, forget it. You're going to have to wipe it down separately to then clean it.
You definitely get in a rhythm, but it always to me felt like an I Love Lucy episode. It's just like when you're just doing 30 glasses in a row, you just feel like I Love Lucy.
I would literally be like, I'd go to the bar back and I'd be like, here's $40 extra for you to do that, because I'm not going to clean that. And just, here, I will over tip you extra on top of your tips to not have to deal with that pile of dishes. It was because it's just, it's just the worst. It's the worst part of the job. It's that pile of dishes.
I hate it. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. We kind of touched on what's next for you, but is anything you're looking forward to, like in like the near future coming up? Like, got any holiday specials on the channel we should be looking out for?
Actually, like the big exciting thing that we're doing is actually building a set.
Okay.
In my garage, which is awesome because what you don't see is that the kitchen that you're looking into from on our channel, the behind the camera is a domed ceiling, and so it's very weirdly echoey. So some episodes are more echoey than others, so it's going to be awesome to get rid of that, and we're going to have a space that's dedicated to us. It's going to make my wife very happy that we're not in the kitchen anymore, because at certain times of the week I'm trudging lighting equipment and stuff through the house, and like setting it all up, and then like wrangling the kids and trying to get them a bath and stuff. Since COVID, because my kids are Zoom schooling at home. We have to shoot at night, which has been a real, I deal with kids all day long. And by the end of the night, I'm so exhausted. And then I have to do several more hours of work. So that's exciting. And so we've just been railing content out, almost like I've just been trying to find interesting drinks, trying to do some seasonal stuff, but it'll be nice to put a little bit more intention behind the episodes. Like I said, we're changing formats a little bit to something I think it'll be kind of fun. And collaborations like this, I don't know. That's what I'm looking forward to, man. So thanks for having me on.
Well, you were on a very short list of guests that I wanted to have on this, of people I know that I feel like, and I don't even think we scratched the surface on some of the things that, we could talk about in the future. So hopefully, somewhere down the line, I get you back on here.
I'll come back on anytime, man. This has been a blast, and I'm flattered that you asked, man.
Of course, man. Well, where can folks find you? It's at The Educated Barfly, right?
So it's at The Educated Barfly on Instagram, or The Educated Barfly on YouTube. You just type in The Educated Barfly on YouTube, you'll find it. And then obviously theeducatedbarfly.com. Sorry, is our
I literally just
website.
I literally just typed in The Educated and you popped up first. So I'm saying.
We've actually, what's funny is that we're not the most, we don't have the most subscribers of cocktail channels on YouTube. There's people that are a lot bigger than us, but I think it's funny. I had someone from London. I was talking to someone from London the other day, and they were like, I cannot remember a time where I've referenced The Educated Barfly and someone didn't know what I was talking about, which I was really surprised, because it's I know that we have a global audience, and it's funny. It's 188,000 people is a lot of people, but when you see that number, when you see it on a screen, it almost becomes meaningless after a while, right? You just know, okay, it's a lot. But when you get a real world example, like that, the content is penetrating and people know about it. It's awesome, but it's also kind of surprising. I'm always surprised by that. So I'm happy that we're I kind of feel like we definitely hit a goal of we did what we set out to do, which is really cool. Now I just kind of want to keep doing it, because I'm just having a lot of fun doing it. Well, I look forward to the vlog style content you might do when Tales of the Cocktail opens back up and everything kind of gets back to normal. I think that'd be cool. We're going to start doing a thing called a drink in the chat, where basically I get lots of stuff in the mail. Today I got them, which is awesome. Ooh. 2 James Distillery just sent me a bunch of this stuff in the mail.
I saw that bottle at Buzz before the pandemic, the whiskey
one. Their answer to Japanese whiskey.
And I was
I'm super stoked.
That's a dope bottle. Yeah. I want that on my, that looks, I can't wait.
But what's cool is that a lot of people ask me about, a lot of people will ask me questions in the comments, and I try to get to them, but a lot of times the answer is longer than I want to type.
Sure.
So what I thought would be is when we get our set built, and it's going to be nice, it's going to be a little warmer. It's going to be modern, but it's going to be a little warmer.
Right.
I'll be able to sit down there, drink a pour of something, right? Talk about the bottle, talk about all the specs behind the bottle, where you can find it, what it is, what the distillery is, blah, 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 blah. And then answer questions. Awesome. Like, okay, this is what you need to know about orange liqueur. This is what you need to know about cherry liqueur. Somebody asked me this question. Somebody asked me that question. I think that is like the vlog style content that we're going to start rolling out soon.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start doing some travel content, which is going to be cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to all that stuff, and it's going to be cool.
Well,
and it's going to be cool. Yeah.
It's going to be cool.
It's going to be cool.
I look forward to it, man.
It's going to be cool.
I look forward to seeing what you guys are going to come up with. I look forward to more sitting down and having a drink with you in person again. Like I said, dude, you've been a staple of my bartending and drinking career for over the, I guess, decade now. So looking forward to doing that again with you in person.
Man, me too.
Cool, man. Well, I'm
looking forward to be on the other side of the bar with you.
I know, right? Jeez.
And actually just having a chat,
One day soon, man. I was just in Nashville, and the bars, you can sit in bars, and it was nice to kind of be in a place. It was still spread out. I didn't feel like
Did it feel weird?
It felt weird for a second, but then you just realize like this is a normal thing that we should be doing. So
right. I just wonder how much PTSD I have.
There's a lot, dude. I'll tell you what, before I sign off here, that it's kind of like, it's weird. You start playing like a very judgmental game in your head unknowingly. You kind of just start assuming people are dirty and like, well, that person, if I'm near them, I'll get COVID. And if I'm near that person, I'm probably fine. And it's a stupid, it's a stupid game you play. But for the most part, man, like sitting in smaller places that were like, it was me and my wife and then maybe like another table, I felt fine. We definitely went to some more honky tonk type bars where I was like, okay, we're going to be right by this window. I don't want to be too close to everything, but eventually we're going to have to kind of do something, because it's such a large fabric of who we are as at least Americans, to go out and be around people that something's going to have to give, but within reason, within safety. I know LA, I'll never sit in a bar in LA probably for a while, because it's just LA itself is just a dirty, dirty city. So I don't trust anybody. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. For me, it's like, it's even hard for me to like go into the grocery store. Like even in the grocery store, I'm like mask on, hood up, like walking around, like don't get near me. Like the thing is that like being inside, like I don't mind being outside places with people, but like inside places with people, I think it's gonna be a weird adjustment to go back to.
Yeah. I mean,
I just hope that the playing field isn't totally barren by the time we come back. Like I'm so afraid that so many places are not going to survive this crazy time.
I mean, that's kind of the sad reality is I think that like you're going to see, I think Kohl's is something like somebody will buy it, but there is a scenario where Kohl's just doesn't get bought and it just never reopens, at least for, a minute. There's always going to be a bar there. And I think somebody's always going to want to buy an already built out bar, especially with history. But there's just so many, like, especially music venues. That's the one thing, like, that's a whole other story. I'm trying to get people on to talk about the Save Our Stages initiative, about the fact that, 90% of independent music venues are going to close when this is all said and done. That's a huge number.
Terrible. It's going to be weird. It's going to be a really long time to bring that back, to like build that back up after this is done.
That's exactly.
And not only that, but it's like this might not be the only pandemic. Like,
oh yeah,
because of the globe is so connected now that it's like because of that, like we're susceptible to stuff more often than we used to be in that. I think the one thing, my dog is yelling at me. I think I gotta go.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it there. It's something to talk about in a future episode.
I mean, I could literally talk to you for another 2 hours. My wife is going to kill me if I do that, but I could talk to you all day.
I find that I have a much better retention rate if I keep these under about an hour. I did it an hour and a half, and it just dies off that last half hour. So we'll wrap it up.
People also like they'll pay attention for an hour, but much longer than that. They're like, well, all right, dude. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, a little wrap up here. Thank you to Leandro, the Educated Barfly. Go check him out, guys. Fantastic YouTube channel and an all-around awesome guy. I've been Eric, as always. Thank you for watching Corner Memoirs of the Service Industry. We'll catch you next time. Later.